Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over my top 5 favorite kayaks to take out with dogs. Specifically, if you're looking to take your dog with you out on the river, out on the lake, and you've probably done some research on which kayaks are the best for it, and you just get a ton of different answers. I'm going to go over my personal top favorite for taking a dog out with you for a day out on the water. Let's get right into it. Okay, so like I said in the intro, we're going to talk about my personal favorite 5 kayaks for taking a dog out with you on the water. These are going to both represent really good performing both lake and river. These are going to be in no particular order because they all kind of serve some different purposes. So if you're wanting to maybe fish a little bit with a dog, a well-behaved dog obviously, in the front there, some of these are going to fit that. If you're just wanting to get out, just recreational float, be a little bit more minimalist in the design of the kayak, I'll have these in here as well. But starting out at number 5, and I'm going with a design that really cover a few different brands here, and I'll explain that. So namely the Bonafide SKF 11.7. So it's an 11.5 foot kayak, and it's kind of more of a hard shell paddleboard style kayak. And Liquid Logic also makes one called the Versa that's the same hull design. They both have the drop down fin. They both have that frame seat, albeit the frame seat is going to be the biggest difference between these two kayaks. And it gives you that nice flat platform. Also in this category, you're going to have the Crescent K-Craft, which is very similar in design. So I wanted to kind of group these all into one because they're really all serve the same purpose. It's really going to come down to what's more comfortable for you. These are going to be great dog kayaks because of that open deck space. You have the ability to remove the bungee on there if you really want to open that up and make it better for your dog to kind of get up there. But these are going to have a beefy enough weight capacity where you can bring a medium to large size dog. Obviously, you're always going to want to make sure that dog is comfortable being on the kayak and the water. If they're not comfortable with either one, it's always best to train your dog to sit, to lay down on the kayak, because that will be their safe space. That way, if they're afraid of the water or get a little spooked, they're already feeling comfortable on that kayak and you're not having to fight 2 different battles there. So a little pro tip there. Number 4, this is going to be a little bit more geared toward the rivers and creeks, and the price range that we're talking about, the NuCanoe Flint. So the Flint is a great river setup. It's got a nice open deck platform. This is going to be really good for small to medium sized dogs. May not be the best for a large breed dog, but on rivers and creeks, you're really going to do well with the NuCanoe Flint in both paddle performance and capacity. And you've got just enough of an open deck concept and deck padding that a dog is going to be comfortable on that kayak and maybe not as active and nervous. The NuCanoe Flint has lowered the price $100 for 2024, and they've lowered the seat position. This is going to give you a little bit more stability, a little bit lower of a center of gravity, and it's going to help facilitate having your dog with you, and they're going to have plenty of room to move around, to stretch out, and to change how they're laying down or sitting down. And it's stable enough for anybody, including a dog, but again, small to medium-sized breeds. I probably wouldn't go large-sized breeds unless he's really well trained on the water. So my next one at number 3 is going to be the Old Town Sportsman lineup, specifically the paddle version. So the Sportsman 106 comes in at $12.99. It is paddle powered. This is going to be a decent river and lake open water setup. Nice open deck platform, albeit not maybe as much as the 120. So the 120 and the 106, the cockpit is going to be very, very similar, almost exact. You're just going to gain some tank well, some rear storage space, and some front storage space, which you do have a hatch storage. So it's not really going to give you more or less room for the dog to sit down on unless your dog is comfortable sitting on top of that hatch. But it does give you a really nice open deck space. The hull is very solid. It's very stable. So again, if you've got maybe a medium or a large size breed dog and they're okay with being on there, and you're not going to have to feel like you're going to be tipping over every time that dog moves around. So if you want a little bit more stability, the Old Town Sportsman lineup, specifically for this list, the 106 is going to be a great option for you. So the number 2 kayak on this list is going to be the Perception Outlaw. So the Outlaw is known by anglers and floaters alike as a great beginner fishing platform, but it's also known for that really good stability and that open deck space that a lot of anglers and floaters alike love to have. For the same reason, you're going to love having a dog on this, and the dog is also going to like this because you do have a padded deck. That is really something I think gets lost in a lot of these kayaks, is the padding on the deck really helps keep a cool surface. So those of you that like to barefoot it like myself when you're out on the water, or if you got a dog that you don't want sitting on hot plastic, again, it bothers certain dogs more than others, but the Perception Outlaw, you've got plenty of room. Me personally, when I have a dog with me, I like to take that front mesh cover off of that front storage area. That's a great place for a dog to sit or to lay down, and then you can attach maybe some bedding on there. You can do a lot of different things. I prefer having a dog in front of me versus behind me, because a lot of times if a dog bails or jumps out, you're going to know about it more quickly if it's in front of you than it's behind you, unless unless you got a larger dog, and you're going to definitely know when he bails. So a Perception Outlaw with the very, very good stability built into the kayak, this is going to be a little bit more of a lake, calm, flat water setup than it is a moving river setup. But you can do it with moving river. Just know you're going to be working a little bit more and putting more effort into paddling versus having to pay attention to a dog, depending on what kind of behavior your dog displays on the water on a kayak. Maybe something to think about. But again, the Perception Outlaw is definitely a good option. And at $919 for 2024, it's not a huge, it's not going to break the bank, and you're getting a very quality kayak regardless. Okay, and number one, and again, these are in no certain order, so I'm not saying that one of these is certainly better than the others. It's really going to depend on what kind of water, but one of my favorite kayaks, and if somebody tells me that they need a kayak that they want to take a dog out on, probably the top choice that I usually recommend is the Jackson Bite. The reason this being is the Jackson Bite has a lot of the same features and specs that the Perception Outlaw does, but you get a little bit more maneuverable hull design. It's going to go through the water a little bit easier. It's still going to be very, very stable, and you still get that open deck space. So just like the Perception Outlaw, the Bite, you can remove the bungee from the front. You get a nice little indention, a little recessed area where that dog can sit or to lay down. You get a 400-pound weight capacity, you get a maneuverable kayak, a comfortable seat, and plenty of space for the dog to kind of get up and move around. Because again, not all dogs act the same when they're on a kayak. Some want to be really close to you. Some are okay with being out on the nose and just checking out the landscape, which I love, but not all dogs do that. So if a dog's nervous, keep in mind, he or she is going to want to be really close to you, and sometimes that can affect your stability because all of your weight is in one part. But if your dog is pretty well behaved and not as nervous or anxious out on the water, the Bite is definitely a good option. You got a lot of built-in stability, so it can kind of be a little more forgiving to an animal moving around on the deck with you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the list. I want to go over real quick maybe some options that are just out of that price range. If you're okay with spending a little bit but want to know which one of these would be really good for dogs. And I'm going to be honest with you, the entire NuCanoe lineup is good for dogs because the entire lineup, for the most part, is that open deck space. And I'm talking about the Frontier series, both the 10 and the 12 foot. The Unlimited now coming out with a 10 foot, 10-inch kayak. That's going to be a really good option if you want to do a little bit more moving water and lake. The 12-foot 5 Unlimited will basically haul anything you could possibly put in it, and you can motorize it. So those of you that want to duck hunt, you're usually going to want to take a dog with you. The Unlimited is by far, in my opinion, the best duck hunting kayak out there. They even sell a duck blind for it, so keep that in mind. Another one to keep in mind too that a lot of people I think skim over is the U-Pick from Jackson Kayak. The U-Pick from Jackson Kayak has padded deck space. It's a 12-foot kayak, a trimmable seat, which is very important when you're talking about a medium-sized to large-sized dog. It allows you to kind of play around with your weight distribution depending on where that dog is going to be at. And you got a 425-pound weight capacity, a longer kayak, a padded deck, and you got a lot of room for accessories also. And it's also a really good paddling kayak. Another one too, and I kind of mentioned it before, is the Old Town Sportsman 120, which kind of goes out of that $1,500 price point. But the Old Town Sportsman 120 gives you a little bit more nose and a little bit tank well, rear storage than the 106 does. although the cockpit is going to be the same size there, but it does kind of stretch it out a little bit more if you got a dog that's okay with being in the back or up on the front on the nose there. Another one to consider also are, and you've probably seen my recent video if you're a subscriber to the channel, is the hybrid kayaks. People have been taking dogs out on canoes for decades. The hybrid kayaks do give you that capability, and I'm talking about the Jackson Tripper 12, I'm talking about the Kilroy from Jackson Kayak. I'm also talking about the Old Town Next series, which is basically like a solo canoe with a kayak capability with the frame seat, adjustable foot pegs, but you got really good room in the front and back to store a dog, for a dog to kind of lay down in. It's always going to be best to have that dog's favorite bedding in there, anything that kind of makes that dog comfortable, but it kind of keeps them confined into an area without just having that flat space. Because again, you're going to really have to know what kind of dog, how they act on there, and to kind of get them acclimated to it. Those hybrids and canoes are really kind of good to kind of making them feel secure, like they're not just out in the open, out in a scary situation. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this has kind of maybe answered some questions. If you casually thought about it, all of these kayaks are good, obviously without a dog on them, but you can easily add a dog or kind of work them into it over time. It's always best to start out on a calm, flat water area without any boat traffic and a lot of noise. Get them used to being on the kayak first, whether that's in your garage or your shop building. Get them used to laying on it, putting their bed on it, giving them treats on it. There's a lot of different ways you can train a dog to get used to it. It's very similar to crate training. Those of you that are familiar with crate training dogs, you're doing it basically on the kayak. That's going to be their comfort area. That's going to be their place that they go for comfort. When you get them out on the water, again, you're not fighting those two different battles, getting them from being scared of the water and scared of being on a kayak, which again is going to move around a little bit. So sometimes that shakiness of a kayak can really make them feel a little uncomfortable. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, if you enjoy the content. And also check out our live streams on Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of guests that we've announced. If you want to check out those, most of these are going to be live interactive chats with people like Creek Fishing Adventures, Alex Rudd from Alex Rudd Fishing. In the future, we'll have Chad Hoover. We've had Gene Jensen on and many others to come. So anyways, guys, hope to see you there on Saturday nights with me and Christina. And without further ado, we'll see you on the next video, guys.